it's important to get an accurate diagnosis.
You're not really different from anybody else.
First thing I notice is a runny nose, itchy eyes.
The most important step is just good hand washing skills.
Hello, and welcome to Say Ah. I'm Melissa McGurran. For the tens of thousands of Americans living with sickle cell anemia, pain means a lot more than an occasional headache or sore throat. It's a near constant presence and can even become a matter of life and death. Here's a closer look at this genetic disorder.
The Tylenol with codeine was enough to make the pain go away.
I found out that Tiana had sickle cell disease from the newborn screening test that was conducted at birth.
My mom told me when I turned 3, she said that it's things that runs through your body.
Sickle cell anemia is a genetic disorder. It's inherited, it comes from mom and dad, where the oxygen-carrying part of a red blood cell is called hemoglobin, and that hemoglobin is abnormal.
Normally your red blood cells are round cells that sort of have a dent in the middle that almost look like a donut. Normally they actually are quite flexible. In sickle cell disease, they tend to form a sickle or a wedge shape, and that cell is very stiff. The problem with that is they don't carry oxygen as well to tissues, and that because they are more stiff, they don't squeeze through small blood vessels as easily as normal red cells. They can get stuck, and when they get stuck in certain places, that's what causes pain. Sickle cell disease has to be diagnosed with blood testing. Most children who have sickle cell disease have parents who have sickle cell trait.
I tested positive for sickle cell trait, then they requested for the father of the child to come in and be tested as well. He was also a carrier of sickle cell trait.
About 2.5 million people in the United States alone have sickle cell trait. The sickle cell trait is not dangerous.
African Americans are at greater risk, largely because this gene is more frequent in that population. By and large, sickle cell trait is associated with almost no symptoms, and so it is certainly possible for parents to have no idea that they are carriers of the sickle cell trait.
Well, it's important to know if you have the sickle cell trait for a couple of reasons. The thing that I think is really important is for family planning, because if you figure out as an adult that you've got sickle cell trait, you've got to know what your partner's sickle cell profile looks like. If they also have a trait, you've got to be very careful and really be following with physicians that specialize in this kind of thing.
Now, what else can you do?
If 2 individuals with sickle cell trait have children, there's a 25% chance, or there's a 1 in 4 that any of their children will have sickle cell disease. There is a 1 in 2 chance that their children will have sickle cell trait. And for 2 people with trait, there's a 1 in 4 chance of them having a child who is completely unaffected and who is normal.
My hemoglobin type is AS, and then her dad's also is AS. And we both passed down the S gene, the sickle gene, to Tiana, and she has sickle cell anemia SS.
So much after 8.
The complications of sickle cell, if it goes untreated, can be profound.
I feel pain sometimes my head and my stomach and sometimes my throat.
The primary symptom is pain, the pain of varying intensities. It could be trivial pain, it could be intermediate pain, or severe, severe pain where you have to be hospitalized to be treated for it.
Tiana, come on so you can take your medicine. Tiana at home probably has pain maybe 2 to 3 days out of a week.
I have to take vitamins every day, and I have to take my medicine, and I have to drink water a lot.
Treatment for somebody who's not in a crisis is really preventive stuff. For kids, it's going to be making sure that that kid is hydrated, preventing infections with preventive antibiotics, sometimes daily, sometimes every other day, and then making sure that that kid is immunized against certain things that we know really affect people with sickle cell anemia, certain kinds of flu, certain kinds of pneumonia. In people who are actually in a crisis, it's very different.
When I was at school, my stomach was hurting and my throat was hurting, so I threw up. Then my mom picked me up from daycare and she took me to the hospital.
In a lot of cases, you try to give a blood transfusion. Well, what does a blood transfusion do? Well, if you take normal red blood cells and you give a transfusion into somebody's vein, you really start to outnumber the sickle cells. The main aim is to actually try to alleviate the pain.
With the proper care, it is possible for someone with sickle cell disease to really be a high achiever.
I want for Tiana to be able to enjoy her childhood, for her to grow up and just live the American dream.
Tiana's doctor says she's doing well managing her disease and pain and has good overall growth. Because of the proactive treatment strategies her doctor has in place, she can look forward to living a very productive life. When we come back, we'll meet one man who has been living with sickle cell anemia for more than 50 years.